To our webinar today, Learning Worth Claiming, so how Davies Group made sustainability everyone's priority. I'm Tracy, I'm Learning Impact Manager here at Thrive, and today I have the privilege of talking to Gillie Fairbrother, Global Responsible Business Officer at Davies Group. I'll introduce Gillie in just a moment, but ultimately a quick summary as to what we're going to be covering today. So today is a LinkedIn Live spotlight all around how the Future Ready Claims sustainability programme that was hosted on Thrive was a success for Davies Group, turning a topic that initially held little relevance for employees into a campaign people generally wanted to be part of. So it's about more than just driving completions. The programme sparked meaningful engagement, encouraging learners to go beyond mandatory content on the platform, and also contributing new ideas and activity that shaped what came next. So we're about to explore the blueprint behind the programme, the results it achieved, which is around 89% live attendance to events, over 1,000 content completions, and 223 full pathway completions across the first cohort alone. So ultimately, this is a great session for HR, L&D people leaders in professional services, financial services, and regulated industries who are responsible for driving engagement with mandatory or compliance learning. So this is about where sustainability becomes a business priority, but ultimately helps you to overcome that struggle to make it land with people. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Gillie.
Hello, thanks so much for having me. That all sounds so exciting.
It does, and I can't wait to get stuck into all of the details and the colour behind that as well. So Gillie, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little about Davies Group and how sustainability became a strategic priority?
Absolutely, yeah. As you said, I look after responsible business, which I suppose is quite a broad term, and has been known as many things in the past, like ESG or corporate responsibility. And I think the key for us is figuring out how we approach this from a group, but knowing full well that we have a very varied service offering. So we have to target some of these initiatives and these global goals that we have on a very specific basis. And that's why we have always tried to embed the work we're doing throughout the business. So yes, we have a small and mighty sustainability team looking after global reporting, but our aim is really to upskill our different divisions and business offerings with the way to be sustainable for themselves and meet that client and regulatory demand.
Yeah, and I can imagine that can be a challenge considering, you have a global workforce as well.
Absolutely. And I think, that's where projects like this, and it's sort of the first big one like this that we've done, have really come into their own, because it just shows how through that extra little piece of engagement and two-way communication that you can really start to embed that, rather than sort of blanket putting things out on a group level and expecting people to pick it up and run with it on their own. So that's what's been so exciting about this project.
Fabulous. And can you tell us more around the campaign approach as to what made Future Ready Claims a campaign rather than just having a compliance or an assignment set out for people to complete as other businesses might do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the most important things from us from the outset and through the support of working with Thrive was that we wanted to be able to measure this properly. So not only, who was involved, how they engaged, but also what they engaged with, what type of learning and what the outcomes were, not just their awareness, but what were the actual things that changed that we could measure. And really, we found at the end of the project that we are just at the beginning, which is exciting. But yeah, we started with surveys. We created sort of a robust structure. We could understand not only the level of awareness, but also how people wanted to learn on this topic. I know I'm a big video learner. I like to have a conversation, be in a live room, be in a workshop, but some people like to go and read and take that information away. So sort of delivering that strategic learning, regular feedback, regular engagement with the leaders who were sort of fronting this project and really championing the outcomes. And then again, coming back to that measuring at the end and engaging with people and creating that network of champions that we now have to help drive this forward. So quite a structured approach, but also lots of different elements to it.
Brilliant. And Gillie, do you mind showing us the platform as to what that actually looks like in respect of the areas of the platform of spaces, for example?
Absolutely. So if I just open up seamlessly, hopefully, my Thrive platform. So at Davies, we have many different hubs on our Thrive space, and this is the Responsible Business Hub that you can see on the page now, which has got lots of information on our reporting. And we created a separate or special pathway for future-ready claims that people could come into. Once our teams had attended a live workshop, and as you mentioned, we had 90% attendance at our live workshops, which was absolutely fantastic across a couple of weeks, but 4 different workshops. As soon as one cohort had completed that workshop, they were released the core content. So they would have got an email through Thrive saying, you now have some learning available. And once they go into that, there would be the deck from the workshop. There would be a little video, there's the launch video, and some other resources, and a call to action at the end. And the call to action is really important because we wanted to make sure they did something, right? They've come, they've consumed, and what is the next action? And that was sort of a very easy step-by-step guide. And the end action was submit your ideas into our Thrive space. You know, you've consumed this learning, you've had these conversations. We want you to continue having these conversations, but what are your ideas based on the knowledge you have in terms of challenges? So that's the core content. And then also we had a bonus content section here, which had a lot of other resources, not just about the topic matter specifically, so things like sustainability. We also had a live interview with one of our adjusters who's part of the cohort as well, so if they were hearing from their own teammates on how they might tackle some of these challenges. But also lots of content around innovation, idea generation, so how they might practically go around achieving these goals rather than just topic specific. And then the call to action was across in our space. So as you can see, we've got nearly 400 people in the cohort. And the question was, what actions will help us meet client demand for sustainable solutions? That's sort of what the challenge boiled down to in the end. And as you'll see, we have our 5 winners that we posted at the end with some prizes. But I mean, I can just keep scrolling down this page and down this page a lot. We had lots of different ideas and thoughts on, over 200 ideas. So that's the platform really on a basic level, but there was a whole journey involved in the process of the engagement.
Yeah, and I know the way you describe in achieving the success was all around positioning being key. Could you talk to me about the positioning and how you were able to get the buy-in you needed for such great engagement?
Absolutely. And I think that came down to leadership sponsorship. So our head of UK property claims, Adam Shaw, was incredibly supportive and passionate about this project, very clearly aware of our client demand on this topic and where we were versus where we were in the market and where we might want to be. So essentially, he was the face of this project. I might have been pulling the strings in the background, writing the content, but I wanted him to own it. Yes, I have a global role and I get quite involved with a lot of teams, but we're talking about engaging the whole of the claims journey, from contractor networks to adjusters to the bid team and the sales team. So people that might not necessarily know who I am, which is fine. They don't need to know who I am, but they know who Adam is. And the other key thing I think was a great piece of success or advice to anyone doing this kind of project. We didn't send a sign-up link to these webinars. Adam personally sent an email out with an invitation to each workshop saying that you had to pick at least one, which involved me sitting on a call with him, copying and pasting the information that I wanted him to put in the invite. And normally, if you get a sign-up link, you might sort of go, well, yeah, I'll get around to that later. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. But if you get an invite from your boss or your boss's boss or your boss's boss's boss, the chances are you're going to say yes to one of those invites. And I think that is what was key. Another really crucial thing that happened as a result of that was that Adam joined the calls to show his sponsorship and engagement as well. And he was getting quite a lot of live feedback from the cohort on the first workshop, which meant I could sort of live adjust the content to tackle some of those challenges or fears or worries about why we were doing this or what we were doing, or is this just going to be more work? Is it going to be more money? How are we going to tackle this? I was able to sort of say, hey, look, we're looking for those opportunities for efficiency. If you've got cost saving ideas, we will also save carbon here as well. So that was just incredibly valuable.
Yeah, being able to get that live feedback is something that we don't often get the opportunity for, right? So I can see the value in that. And thinking about the whole process, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned in the stats at the beginning, which I mean, even I was overwhelmed. The first workshop, I sort of hoped that I'd maybe get 10 people, and it was sort of over 120 people, which was amazing.
Wow.
So the stats have been amazing. The one stat that wasn't so great, and you'd quite often expect to see a drop off on a survey. I think we had over 70% response rate on the opening survey, and it was a lot lower on the closing survey, and it was half term. So I slightly wonder whether we could have timed that better. But also we were trying to fit into a project plan, and we still got a good consensus that the results that I saw were, a good amount of a number of people to sort of prove those results. But yeah, I think definitely keeping an eye out. And this was luckily for us a UK project, so we were only thinking about one time zone, one space. Definitely, if we're thinking global, what are those holidays? What are those observances that you might have to look out for in people's calendars?
Brilliant. And thinking about, the operation of everything and the role of Thrive and the platform itself, would you have been able to achieve this without the platform? And ultimately, how important was the role of the tool of Thrive?
I think it was sort of the backbone of the project, right? Everything sort of hung off that learning pathway and that place for people to go and put ideas and put their go into their space, have those conversations, tag people, have those wider conversations, and that we could then track that, because without it we wouldn't have really had visibility. If you sent out resources as an email attachment, you could probably track how many people have opened it, but you don't know whether they've opened that attachment and really read it cover to cover, or whether they just opened it, closed it. So I think that tracking element is absolutely crucial. But I also think with the introduction of spaces, you're introducing that social element where people can go have a conversation, tag each other. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And then it becomes a conversation rather than a one way, you must learn this, and we don't want to hear from you. We do want to hear from you, and we want to hear what your experiences are, because without you it really won't work. And I think that's part of why we now have an ongoing initiative, which I'm sure we'll talk about off the back of this, because our colleagues have been part of it and they feel like they've owned this process.
Definitely. And like I say, the results are outstanding with the 89% live workshop attendance across 4 separate sessions, over 1,000 content completions, and 223 full pathway completions. Can you translate that into what that actually means for Davies Group as to, those are some fantastic learning stats, but what has that actually helped you as a business do or achieve?
I mean, for me, that is the demonstration of our target that I mentioned at the beginning, is that we are not a business with a sustainability team on the side. We are working to be a sustainable business, and that has to come from the people that are delivering our products and services, working with our clients, working with our contractors, making those decisions every day. And I think that engagement, whether that be the way we structured it or the fact that we had the leader send out the information, they still picked up their teams, took an hour out of work time, came, listened, engaged. We had a very low drop-off rate on the workshops as well. We had a lot of chat in the channels. We had breakout rooms where people were having conversations that I had to cut off, just so we could meet the timing of the workshop. But yeah, I think it really just shows that people care about this. Employees, from an engagement standpoint, want to work for a business that have a good purpose, that are thinking about, well, hang on, how are we going to have a more positive environmental impact? So it just gives me good faith in the business and in the people that work at Davies.
Definitely. So where people are a lot more aware, you've also mentioned that you've created a new tool from this, and that's the calculator. Would you like to talk to us about that?
Yes, so as part of the ideas submission, which was part of the whole campaign, we did an analysis on all of those over 200 ideas that came in and all the notes and feedback that we got in the workshops. Used a little bit of AI to help us summarize that as well, but then using that human eye to go over those examples, talk to some of the people that gave those ideas. And we had sort of key themes of the feedback and ideas, things around repair versus replace with property claims, how we manage waste. But the most prominent feedback that we got was, how do we measure this? Because if we can't measure, or we don't know, for example, and I'm getting very into the weeds now, what this piece of wood looks like versus this piece of wood when I'm going to do a repair after a kitchen flood, and what the carbon footprint is. If we don't know that, how are we going to make the change? So we were lucky enough to partner with Verisk, who are our software platform for claims handling, who had developed the first carbon calculator that's backed by the Carbon Trust. So there are a number of other carbon calculators being used, but when you're working with assumptions, it's quite difficult. You can measure the footprint, but like I said, how can you make the action that will make the change? So through working with Verisk, for every claim now, we will be able to see the carbon footprint of each element of the claim, whether that be the material that's used, the travel, even how far the material has traveled, how, the quantities of that. So we're getting a very specific carbon footprint for each claim. And then what we can do is build into the software rules and alerts to say to our adjusters, have you thought about using this piece instead? It's comparable in price, it will last longer, the carbon footprint is lower, and that's really where we are now. So we've actually got 2 years of retroactive data of our claims for the past 2 years, which we're currently squirreled away analysing, looking for those opportunities. And then shortly, we'll be starting to engage with our champions network, who are the people that were really involved in future ready claims. So they can start talking to their wider teams. We'll definitely continue the communications with the whole cohort as well to let them know what we're doing. And how they really can lead it by making these different decisions. So yeah, it's beginning of that journey, but very excited because now we can report annually on what the carbon footprint looks like of our claims and whether we've managed to bring it down, which would be the ultimate goal and dream.
Absolutely, which is phenomenal. So we're not just talking about a campaign that has helped increase awareness. You've actually changed the way people are behaving day to day and the tools that they're using as well. So with that, I mean, I don't know how else we can top that off, but looking ahead, what comes next for Davies on this program and the wider learning strategy?
Well, on this program, I think, as I said, we want to continue to engage with this cohort. They're obviously, very engaged, and they've brought about change already. And I feel like we haven't really started. When we're starting to measure on the reduction of our carbon across our claims, that is where they really need to celebrate how they have changed the future of how we do things, and that our claims really are future ready without adding on the cheesy bit. So this, I think, will be ongoing, and who knows where it will lead us. And then I think, yeah, looking at future iteration. So we focused on UK property claims. Well, we also have motor claims, we have casualty claims, we also have the US, and we're based in 22 countries. So the expansion is possible here as well, not to mention other potential future projects on different topics. Now we feel like we've got a good blueprint on how this worked for Davies.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Gillie, for sharing the insight into such a successful project. And we hope that everyone has enjoyed listening.